Hello everyone. Welcome to Pocky's Conversations, and we've got a lovely crowd with us today to share some thoughts together on the whole idea of coming aside with Jesus. And we were discussing this as an idea of going away as a Pockets group, and jokingly said, well, if it's a retreat, then perhaps we ought to call it a charge or a come aside time or an away time. You may have your own preferences on that. On the other hand, some of those names, thoughts are probably hanging around what we mean by a time away, a coming aside time, or a retreat or a charge, and what we think people want to get out of such an exercise at such a time together. So we're going to open it up to a bit of a conversation for a few minutes, and then I'm going to share a bit about one of the come aside times we have in the Gospels that Jesus has with his disciples. So let's just do that for a minute with this select group. So I don't know, this is the question. What is the value? Why do people want to come aside? So, or go on a retreat, or go on a charge, or away time. So yeah, over to people on some thoughts on that whole idea.
Okay, well, I don't know about everybody else, but I know what I'm like, and I'm very good at getting distracted.
Bit louder, Con.
Yes, of course. I'll sit a bit closer. I'm very good at being distracted by just whatever else is going on, or other things that I think need to be done, and I'll carry on. So one way I try to come aside, or whatever you want to call it, on a regular basis is to have at least part of one day of the week as a bit of a Sabbath. And for those of you who know me a bit, I am getting more of a focus on the way our Christian faith is based on the Judean, the pre-Christian Jewish faith. And I think for me personally, I've lost a lot of that, or never had it along the way. So the idea of having a bit of a Sabbath, so extending that to an overnight, and obviously with the what should we say, the sort of bonus of being with like-minded people who are on the same sort of spiritual level. If I may borrow Bob's trademark, it strikes me as a bit of a win-win.
Yes.
Thank you. I must have said that twice today already.
Yeah, I think so.
Irene, are you saying something?
I kind of like, I agree that you should try and do some kind of like Sabbath. It's not always easy to keep up and maintain. I kind of go through phases where I do it, and then life gets hectic and really busy, and then you just can't do it, and you get out of the way of doing it. So it's sometimes good to refocus and just come away as a time of just refocusing to remember, like, it's okay to be still and to actually collect your thoughts again together. But I also feel that there's something in fellowship. There's something really good about being with like-minded people, and it's like iron sharpens iron. Yeah. And you actually get a lot of like spiritually fed from other people as well. I know I'm quite a bit of an extrovert, so I just love people. But I do think that there's something around, gaining what other people have, and their knowledge and their walk with God, and their history, and sort of pull on sort of them to pray for each other. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Irene. I can sense you wanted to say something.
Oh, well, yeah. I was thinking that one of the important things for me is knowing that there is this space set aside, just to draw near to God, so that to come out of the sort of daily timetable of things that one has to do. If you set aside a time, like Con was saying, a particular time in the week, we've been setting a time aside a particular afternoon each month, or trying to, as well as hopefully getting some time within the week. But if I know I have a space, then it helps me to sort of rest in it and to be able to hear God better, because I'm not thinking, oh, I've only got half an hour and then I've got to do something else. So I think just having that ability, knowing that you've got that time away, helps. I think the advantage of having other people is that it's not, maybe not so intense, so that you can you can have fellowship, you can talk about things, you can maybe learn from someone else how they're approaching their sort of time with God. So a bit of both, really, but definitely having the space out of the routine is really helpful.
For me, it made me think about my kind of everyday time, where if I'm trying to write a song, or just work on a project, and I get a bit frustrated, it doesn't feel like it's going somewhere, then I know just going for like a walk kind of fuels my imagination, gives my space for my mind and my heart, I guess, to breathe, and that fuels my imagination, gives more creativity, and maybe it's whether it's God speaking or just looking around as I'm going for a walk, and that helps my imagination grow and fresh insight or fresh creativity. And I try to do that on a weekly basis. If I'm doing something creative, just take time out. And I guess doing a retreat would be similar, really, on a bigger scale, just getting away from everyday life, where just letting our hearts and imaginations grow. And that's could be if we're like all together through a conversation or through input, or just having some alone time on the retreat. I think it's just a space for let your imagination wander, and hopefully some new things can grow out of that time, whether it's with God and through the fellowship as well.
I love that idea of letting your imagination grow and wander, the idea of some freedom around one's normal tracks of life. That's lovely. Does anyone else want to comment? Sorry, you'll need to unmute, Nigel and Susan, please.
I didn't realize that.
Oh no, I muted you earlier because you were talking across.
Yeah. Well, I see there's two aspects to it, because one is, it's about, we need to hear God personally for our own lives and our own journey. But I was just thinking about the other aspect of it, like Irene says, it's about other people. Today, obviously, I was with Aaron in Hexham, and we had, besides Jerry, there was two others joined with us, Kevin and Stephanie. And afterwards, we had a wonderful time of worship. But afterwards, as we sort of came together, we went to Wetherspoons and we shared. I'd never met Stephanie before, but I've met Kevin a number of times. But what they shared was inspirational and inspiring in who they were in Christ themselves. So there's two things and I agree with Irene there, that we need the spiritual blessing of other people speaking into our lives or sharing their lives with us, as well as our quiet time that Mary has just mentioned about putting to one side to hear God for ourselves personally. So that's the way I say it. Is that, did you want to say
No,
something?
that's fine.
Brilliant, thank you. If we think in terms of lessons learned or lessons the Lord wants us to learn, you know, we talked about coming together in fellowship, or to hear the Lord, let our imaginations wander and grow. That there may be particular lessons that the Lord might want us collectively to step forward in, as a thought, because the example I'm just going to draw on in a moment from the Gospels, certainly there is the kind of thoughts that have come out from this bit of sharing, but there was if you like, some sense that the Lord might have some lessons for us. So I'm just going to pause the recording just so that we can talk personally about that. And if you're on this and you're watching this recording on YouTube, you might want to pause yourself and think about that. What lessons might the Lord want us to be stepping forward in, things that he knows are good for us, if you like, to spend time aside in which those things might arise or be an outcome from, for your particular season and walk that you're in. So I hope you've just spent a few moments thinking about what kind of lessons the Lord might want, or what kind of outcomes from some kind of time away. But I do think we have to be a little bit careful about over egging our expectations about a time. I don't know if you've been in that situation where one has intentionally gone away for some time, and one's been a little bit disappointed in how that time has been. Perhaps you've spent the first hour or two getting your minds kind of in the right zone after a busyness of a crowded week, or the time just seems to fly by very quickly, and so you think, oh my goodness, it's time to go home already, and I've hardly even opened the Bible. I've just about read John 3:16 or something. Or you had some grand plan of learning a whole psalm off by heart while you were meditating on it, and you've not really managed to do much at all in the time. All I can say is that these things have a ripple effect out, and there's a strengthening that comes from intentionally drawing nearer to God and to dwell in his word, and that encouragement of being with others as well. You know, that really helps, to that encouragement that others can give. So and even the more abrasive moments or the challenging moments when you're wondering, why am I here, and this person who is talking to me I'm not finding very easy to listen to, you know, that as well is part of what God might be up to allow us to experience the whole flavor of the body of Jesus Christ in all its glory. So there are some effects that go on beyond that we don't perhaps necessarily notice at the time when we're together. Somebody mentioned, while we were having our personal discussion just now on this call, the whole idea of just building healthy relationships, just enjoying people that you don't have the opportunity normally to spend such a lot of time with.
Yeah.
However, I wanted to talk about an example of Jesus having time aside, and if you in Mark's Gospel, you do get a time in Mark 6 verse 31 where Jesus says to them to come aside and get some rest, and so that's all very appealing, especially if you're leading a very busy life. I'll just read Mark 6:31. He said, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. Now, what precedes that in verse 30 is the apostles gathering around Jesus and reporting back to him all that they had done and taught. And this is something that, you know, they've been sent out, the 12, early on in chapter 6 of Mark, and all sorts of amazing things had gone on. And then It says in verse 31, because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. So there is a solitary place waiting for them on the other side of a boat trip. And that's where they're going to get this come aside rest time. But it doesn't quite work out in the way in which they thought, although I suspect that Jesus anticipated that there might be trouble on the horizon and that they weren't going to get the time in the way they thought. But there is two thoughts about lessons that might be going on here beyond just getting some rest, because that does sound very laid back. We've been invited to go on a church away time of a church in Birmingham, and for 5 days. I thought, my goodness, how are we going to put ministry in for 5 days? This is quite a challenge. And then we realized that their format for their 5 days was going to be so laid back that I think we do about 2, if not maximum 3 ministry sessions, and somebody else is going to do a creative worship dance session, and that's all that's happened. The rest of the time, people just basically chill, play table tennis, go for a walk. As I think Tom Sawyer or something in Uncle Tom's Cabin says, apparently, sometimes I sits and thinks, and sometimes I just sits. And there are times when that sounds like a very attractive proposition. So there is that thought in why Jesus is taking these people out of it. But in the full context of 2 lessons come to mind for me in this. There is a very necessary one that you could argue of a need to spend time out, and Jesus may have been doing this, grieving, because in Mark 6, between them being sent out on this amazing healing miracles time and then reporting back in verse 30, you have a sort of an interlude that talks about John the Baptist having his head chopped off, and obviously as Jesus' cousin, and this being a very sad moment, you could argue that for Jesus personally, this was going to be a time of just reflection on what is going on and the loss of John, his cousin. But I've been majoring in my thinking on another reason, because the apostles came back full of themselves, and in some of the other gospels arguing amongst themselves about who was the greatest, who had the most amazing time. In fact, when the 72 came back later on in Luke, they're all excited about the demons being driven out, and Jesus tells them to rejoice in the fact that their names are written in the book of life, and sort of brings them back into what they that maybe a proper perspective, not to let all this kind of driving out of demons and healing the sick and so on go to their heads in a sort of prideful kind of way, but to recognize that they actually are entirely dependent on God for their help. Otherwise there'd be nothing. When Jesus sends them out, he sends them out with his power and his authority, and if they just went out by themselves, they weren't going to get very far very fast. So I have a sneaky feeling that this come aside time that Jesus was offering to them was an opportunity to calm their spirits down and to get themselves back into perspective about what was important to them, to really take on board that Matthew 11, 29 to 30 of, come to take my yoke upon me, learn of me, come to me all you are weary and heavy laden. The idea that really we need to be yoked to Jesus to do anything. John 15 verse 5 comes to mind, apart from me, you can do nothing. I'm the vine, you are the branches, and we need to dwell in him. So I think there's a whole need that Jesus perceives, not just for a rest, but that in the rest and in the quiet, they're going to learn and something about that need to be dependent on Jesus, and not to think that, hey, look what we've done. They've gone out and they've done all these things in quotes without Jesus. And so there's something important though. When they get to the other side, that's not what they get. The lesson that maybe in quiet and solitude that you could think they could get they actually don't get, because they're greeted by thousands of people, and people that want to hear from Jesus. And so instead of that, they're in the middle of a sort of crowd management exercise. And at the end of it, Jesus says, we need to feed these people. And they haven't a clue. And because what can you do? How can you feed 5,000 people in a wilderness? Even if you had the money to go to the shops, you can't just turn up at Shilbottle local convenience store and buy food for 5,000 people. You know, it doesn't work that way. So, and you know, we got the one boy with his loaves and fishes, and Jesus basically says, you know, get them sat down, feed them. So they have the lesson of dependency is actually worked out in the crowd, which I think is very interesting. He then packs them off on a boat and goes off up the mountain, presumably because finally Jesus is going to get his time out. And there in a boat rowing across to the other side of this lake, and they're still rowing across this lake several watches of the night later. Jesus is able to see them, I don't know, miraculously otherwise, still on the lake, struggling against the winds and the storm, as it were, not getting anywhere fast. And I think, again, the lesson that one might think might be learnt in the quiet and the rest and the solitude, they're getting the lesson again in the middle of the storm of their entire dependency and need for Jesus. Because, you know, he could have come to their rescue maybe halfway through that lot and stepped into the boat and got them instantly across, like is described in John's Gospel. As soon as Jesus stepped into the boat, they arrived at the shore. But instead, he waits till the fourth watch of the night and then walks across to these poor, tired disciples rowing away and not getting very far. And in fact, in one of the Gospels, he walks by them. And if they actually hadn't called out in their need, he would presumably just carried on walking. It was as if he was provoking them to cry out for their need of him. And then finally, Jesus have gone, Peter has yet another lesson in dependency, because he's invited to step out of the boat and come towards Jesus. So there's all sorts of lessons there of dependency being learnt in what started off as a time away, a rest, a come aside time, and actually is worked out as lessons in the crowd of the 5,000 in a boat without Jesus in the middle of a storm, looking a bit edgy and so on. So there's some interesting thoughts there about what lessons, intentionally or otherwise, Jesus thought they needed to know. I think he was sensitive in the flow of the Spirit, and maybe either he knew ahead where this was heading, or he certainly knew that this was what was needed to do, and he was not, if you like, pushing the buttons too quickly or manipulating the situation. He was just allowing the flow to go in such a way that was in the best interest of the apostles there. So if we are thinking of a time out, a time away, it's definitely got to be a time in which we intentionally seek to draw near to God and find, if you like, rest in him. Whatever that looks like, it will be in our best interest to go with the flow of the Spirit. And we might have unexpected twists in that, opportunities to relate with one another when one decides to go on a time away, a come aside time with Jesus, as it were. What we can be sure is that if our hearts are desiring to go on with him, to grow and allow him to move in our lives, then the time will be extremely valuable to us in every way. So I'm just wanting to wrap at that moment in terms of this vulnerability, this sense of dependency that goes on. But I love the way in which Jesus takes a situation and brings us back to a proper perspective on, you know, what is needed and where we are in the scheme of things. We are his little flock, that, you know, we are little children. We have a dependency on our God in all of that. well, I'll leave it there. I'm talking about coming aside, away times, charges, retreats, whatever you want to call it. So God bless you. I hope that was helpful.